It's finally time to return to the Mount Panorama circuit for the iconic Bathurst 12-hour, and heading into the upcoming venue, the entry list was officially unveiled, and it includes many competitive GT3 cars that will fight for the overall win. So in this video, I'll break down each and every car that is set to compete at the 2025 Maguire's Bathurst 12-hour. 22 cars will be represented on the grid by established teams for the first round of the Intercontinental GT Challenge in 2025, and 18 of those cars will be GT3 models. For the 22nd running of this Australian endurance race, 7 brands will be bringing GT3 cars, including the likes of Aston Martin, Audi, BMW, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Mercedes, and finally Porsche. And keep in mind that 2 other brands, which I haven't mentioned yet, will be represented on the grid through other kinds of cars, which I'll get into in just a moment. The noticeable addition to the Bathurst 12-hour this year is that of Ferrari, who will be back on the grid thanks to the 296 GT3. Ferrari hasn't been seen on the Bathurst 12-hour grid in quite some time. In fact, the Italian manufacturer's last appearance was in 2020. However though, that doesn't mean that they haven't had success here before, because Ferrari has taken 2 overall wins at the 12-hour endurance race back in 2014 and 2017, with the 488 GT3 being the last car to take Ferrari to the top step at Mount Panorama for this event. In terms of the exact entries for this race, I'll start off by breaking down the main cars in the event, which of course are the GT3 models. The list begins with the number 4 Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo from Grove Racing, which in fact features a father and son driver lineup of Stefan and Brenton Grove, and they'll be joined by Fabian Schiller. Next up is the number 9 Audi R8 LMS GT3 Evo 2, and that entry will be from Hallmark Team Melbourne Performance Center. Then there's the only Aston Martin Vantage GT3, and by the way, this car will not be the Evo variant, and that is the number 14 entry, which will be featured on the grid thanks to Volante Rosso Motorsport. Moving on to the highly anticipated Ferrari 296 GT3, as 2 of these beautiful Italian machines will be racing at the Bathurst 12-hour this year. And by the way, Ferrari will also contest in the Intercontinental GT Challenge with the 296 GT3 for the very first time since 2022. The team running these entries at Mount Panorama will be Perth-based Ferrari squad Arise Racing GT, as they run the number 26 and number 36 cars on the grid. And by the way, one of the 3 racers a part of the number 26 Ferrari lineup will be factory Ferrari driver Daniel Serra. For those familiar with the WEC and IMSA, a team you may recognize is the Heart of Racing, who will be back at the Bathurst 12-hour with SPS to run the number 27 Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo, and the car will feature 3 drivers who have raced in the WEC and IMSA, including Ian James, Zachary Robichon, and Ross Gunn. Speaking of familiar teams, the Belgian squad of Team WRT are going to be back to fight for overall victory at the Bathurst 12-hour, as they will bring the number 32 and number 46 BMW M4 GT3 Evos onto the grid. Last year, the BMW entries from the team were very quick, and were challenging for overall victory. And with the Evo variants proving to be extremely competitive in the first 2 events they've competed at, which were the Dubai 24-hour and the Rolex 24 at Daytona, it's very possible that these cars will be at the top at the Bathurst 12-hour. BMW are bringing quite a talented driver lineup to the grid as well, and it includes 7-time MotoGP champion Valentino Rossi, who will make his 3rd consecutive appearance at the event. Next up is the first of the Tigani Motorsport entries, and that is the number 44 Valmont Racing Audi. And Tagani's 2nd entry is the number 47 Superbarn Mercedes entry. Then there is the next of the AMG GT3 Evos, which will be brought by the formerly known Sun Energy One Group, now referred to as 75 Express, who have won this event 2 times before, and will be back in 2025 to run the number 75 Mercedes with Kenny Habul, joined by Luca Stoltz, and factory Alpine WEC hypercar racer Jules Gounon. Finally, of the 3 in a row listed Mercedes entries is the number 77 car, entered by Team Craft Bamboo Racing. The first of the Porsche 911 GT3Rs on the grid is from the Bend Motorsport Park team, who have entered that number 91 Porsche with that beautiful red, white, and yellow livery on the car. And even though I'm not mentioning all the driver lineups for each of the teams for this event, I do want to point out this one in particular, because it features some very noticeable names, which includes brothers Yasser and Sam Shaheen, along with Maurice Shireen, and by the way, Yasser and Maurice are both winners of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, as they won last year in LMGT3 for Porsche. And finally, joining them will be Lauren Heinrich, who is the most recent IMSA GTD Pro Drivers Champion, and currently drives the famous Rexy Dinosaur Porsche in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Moving on, and next on the list is the only Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2 featured on the grid this year, and that is the number 93 Wall Racing entry. Then there's the next of the Audi R8 LMS GT3 Evos on the grid, and this entry is the 183 Jamek Racing by Team Melbourne Performance Center entry. Another Mercedes on the grid is from the Scott Taylor Racing Group, and their entry is badged with the number 222. And then there's the final AMG GT3 on the grid, which will be the number 888 Team GMR entry, which features highly successful Mercedes driver Mauro Engel included in the lineup, and he'll be joined by Michael Grenet and Maxime Martin. And the Belgian racer is making his second appearance in the Mercedes AMG GT3 after switching from BMW, with his first coming recently for the Get Speed team at the Rolex 24 Daytona. The final GT3 entry on the grid is the number 911 Porsche from Absolute Racing, and this will most definitely be the car to beat, as it features last year's winners Ina Changuven, Matt Campbell, and 2024 event class winner Alessio Piccarello, a part of the car's lineup. I also want to mention that there was going to be a 23rd entry on the grid this year, and that was going to be a Mercedes from 111 Racing. However, the team had to pull out the entry last minute. Now, besides the GT3 entries, which are definitely going to be the main attraction of this event, there will also be a few additional cars coming for 2025, and they will either be GT4 models or be placed into the Invitational class. 4 additional entries will be on the grid, and one of the GT4 cars participating will be the Mercedes AMG GT4, which is the same kind of car used in IMSA Support Series, and the GT4 model from the German marque that will be competing this year in the event will be the number 19 entry from Team 19. The other 2 GT4 cars racing will be from McLaren, and even though the British constructor isn't represented on the GT3 side of racing at Mount Panorama this year, they will still technically be a part of the action. 2 McLaren Artura GT4s will be on the grid, and those entries will be the number 24 and number 25 cars from Method Motorsport. Finally, the last of the 23 entries on the grid this year will be a part of the Invitational category, and this will be a KTM Crossbow GT2 car, and it will be the only kind of car from KTM on the grid. The entry will compete using the number 50, and will be run by the Vantage Racing team. So that completes each and every entry that is expected to compete at the Maguire's Bathurst 12 Hour in 2025. Out of all the cars that are set to race, which one will you be supporting in the 22nd edition of this Australian endurance race? Well, be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like endurance racing, definitely subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I'm releasing videos on a weekly basis regarding the WEC, IMSA, Intercontinental GT, and much more. To watch more content now, check out these suggested videos I've put on screen. For now though, that's all from me. Thanks for watching.